The purpose of this brief tutorial is to show how and why particular teeth are selected leading up to producing a digital corrective setup. So to accomplish that, I have a set of models in front of me. To separate the teeth, one needs to be in a single model mode. So I'm going to just have a maxillary model turned on, and here it is in front of me. Uh, the rationale for some of my decision making is as follows. It is my intention to reposition the lateral, central, and the lateral incisors. So I'm going to separate and define those four teeth for the benefit of the corrective setup. I'm going to separate and define the two canines to act as the firewall to prevent any undesirable soft tissue changes from bleeding past the canine. So that's the firewall function. I'm also going to define the first molar as the landing pad for the model marking area. When you have a sequence of the nearly identical models, virtual or otherwise, it is going to be nearly impossible to tell them apart in the sequence, and model marking will be helpful in that regard. So to go into the tooth separation mode, I need to hop into the virtual setup and begin my tooth separation. Now, again, as I said, I'm going to start with the canine on this side and clicking at the interproximal surfaces of that canine. The software assumes that I'm starting all the way in a corner with the third molar, which it is not the case. We're going to correct the software's perception and make this tooth a 1-3. We're operating within the FDI system currently. The next tooth is going to be a tooth 1-2, followed by a 1-1, followed by a 2-1, followed by a 2-2, followed by a 2-3. And this tooth obviously is going to give us a little bit of a problem, as once again the software makes certain assumptions that this tooth follows that tooth, and it assumes it is a 24, and in fact it is not. It is a tooth 2-6. So that defined the teeth. Now my next step will be to accept that, and we go into the definition of the individual teeth. Now, the definition of the gum line is done semi-automatically by placing the markers in the specific locations as organized here along the gum line. So here are the two spots. Here is the third. Here is the fourth, and the semi-automatic splining by the software led us to this. So I'm going to move a couple of errand points by clicking the point and activating it and bringing it into the fold. It's interesting to note that if I needed to eliminate a particular point, you double click on it. If I needed to add one, you double click on an empty line. And you can highlight a particular dot and move it. So I'm highlighting this and I'm able to move it, highlight it, and I have a fairly decent definition of the gum line. By the way, the green arrow merely points at the tooth that is currently being worked, with. So there is my lateral incisor. I can select an appropriate view. Oh, that was an inadvertent point. So there is one here, and there is a little bit of a struggle here. Let me backtrack and start from scratch, maybe from a different angle. How about a point here? Oh, that definitely is off track. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, we got a little twisted up here. Let's try again. 1 and 2. Oh, it went backwards. Undo it completely. Just backtrack all the way. Backtrack all the way. So here's 1, here's 2, here's 3, and here's 4. So here we go. That tooth is defined, and we're going to accept that. Not exactly sure why occasionally this kind of a struggle happens. Generally it is fairly straightforward, as you can see here. If you feel that a particular dot is not needed, you can take it away or add it, as the case may be. So I'm going to add one here, and it looks like that's looking pretty good. Next. This looks also pretty good. Now, one needs to be mindful of the spline line not twisting up unnecessarily. So here's 1, 2, 3, flip it around, 4, and that got pretty much nailed. And I'm going to accept that, going for the canine. That looks pretty good also. And that's my first molar. And that looks like that is in decent shape also. So my upper model had been defined. A little bit of post-processing. And this other teeth that kind of I'm given another shot to take a look at it. And if anything doesn't quite look right, I have an opportunity to do some last-minute tweaking. Everything looks pretty good to me, so I'm going to accept that. And a little bit of post-processing being done. And essentially, we're going to repeat the procedure for the maxillary, for the mandibular model as well. I'm going to reduce the size of the roots of the teeth here, and that's going to be accepted. My upper model is done. Let's hop to the lower, and essentially, let's see what's happening here. My intent is to define the four incisors for the benefit of the reset, 2 canines, and the molar. Kind of very similar scenario to what we had on the lower. So let's proceed with our plan. We're going to define the first molar, and that happens to be a tooth number 4-6, while the computer thinks it's 4-8. So we're going to correct that. We're going to skip one and head for the canine. Once again, a correction will be necessary here as well. So the rest of the incisors should be good. 3-1 and a 3-2 and a 3-3. So that is all in good shape. So we're going to go next. And we're going to now define the gum lines of the teeth in question. That's our molar. So we're going to hit the 4 spots around it, and actually I did it in 3, so much the better. That's good. We're going for the canine, and that looks pretty decent as well. I'm going to accept that. We're moving on to the lateral, and it kind of jumped the gun and defined everything in 2 clicks. Okay, that works. That works for me. And the next tooth. So the outside looks good, on the inside it is just a bit in error. We're moving for the next one. And here it got a little confused. Let's undo this and try again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, there it is. It got corrected, and it's done well. Moving to the next tooth. And that looks pretty good too. I see a little bit of a twisted line here. And actually that's a great example. I'm going to eliminate the needed dot, and everything is just falling right into place. And that is that. And here we're looking at our last tooth to be defined. Looks like it went wide in a couple of spots, so we'll rein it in. And here we go. All of the teeth have been defined on the lower. And we are almost ready for our setup. So once again, our last shot at correction, and everything looks good. And here is my lower model. Looks like there may be a little glitch here. The root was not defined, but I'm not going to use the roots for this setup anyway, so I'm going to reduce the size of this, size of the root to 1 millimeter. Apply it to all. It just makes it a little bit easier for me to deal with issues, and I'm going to accept it. So we have now upper and lower models that are ready for the setup. And let's see how they come up. And here are the 2 models with some teeth defined and some teeth not defined. And this model is ready for a digital setup. And this is where we will pick up with the next tutorial. Thanks.